My name is Samantha, and I'm 15 now. Looking back at everything that happened, it's hard to believe how much my life has changed in just 2 years. I think that's what happens when your whole world is turned upside down twice. It all started when I was 13. Back then, I hadn't realized how fragile the usual order of things could be. My parents divorced, and my mom kept the house for herself. I stayed with her, of course, and Dad agreed to pay a lot of alimony. One day I heard my mom bragging about it on the phone, her voice sounding pleased, even triumphant. I finally got what I deserved. I couldn't get those words out of my head. I didn't understand why she sounded like she'd won a trophy in court. Why did you and Dad break up? I asked my mom countless times in the first months after the divorce. But she just shook her head and gave me the same answer. Your father made his choice, Samantha. Her voice became firm, almost icy. He doesn't want to be a part of our lives anymore. He doesn't want to see you. It's better if you just accept it. But how could I accept something that didn't make sense? My father called me his little scientist son and spent hours helping me with my homework. He taught me how to solve logarithms, explained how the universe works, and laughed when I asked questions that even he didn't know the answers to. How could he just stop wanting to be my father? The thought burned me from the inside out. It hurt so much that sometimes I couldn't breathe. And then the letters started coming. Every holiday, as scheduled, I found an anonymous message in my mailbox. No long speeches, nothing special, just simple words of love and support. When I first saw one of them, my heart skipped a beat. Keep reaching for the stars, darling. The same thing he told me every night before going to bed. I knew it had to be Dad. Who else could have written? I never told my mom about the letters. I could not. Just mentioning her father's name made her face twist, as if she felt something better. After the divorce, Mom quit her job. She said she needed time to recover. But I wasn't stupid. The alimony from my father was more than enough for us to live in comfort. Mom spent her days making repairs in the house and attending yoga classes. I'm looking for myself, she said. And then Steve showed up. We met at yoga, my mom informed me with a smile. Steve came into our lives unexpectedly, but confidently. He was tall, well-groomed, and confident. Too confident. Before I could realize what was happening, our house was filled with conversations about new beginnings and mixed families. And then Archie and Sarah, Steve's children, moved in. Archie was 2 years younger than me, and Sarah was only 11. And that's when everything really changed. Mom has become different. She literally beamed, surrounding Archie and Sarah with care. She spent hours tinkering with Sarah's hair, braiding intricate braids and picking up hairpins, cooking Archie his favorite dishes, buying them new clothes. And I sat at the kitchen table, feeling like a ghost in my own house. Mom, I said one day when I couldn't take it anymore, it's like you've forgotten that I exist. She looked at me strangely, with a look I hadn't seen before. Half with pity, half with annoyance. Don't be selfish, Samantha, she said, her voice as flat as a knife. Archie and Sarah lost their mother when they were very young. They need more care and attention. You're an adult now. She spoke as if it was something self-evident. It's like taking care of Sarah and Archie is an obligatory duty, and taking care of me is some kind of unnecessary luxury. Then the family photo shoots began. Every weekend, Mom turned our house into a catwalk. She chose outfits, made everyone stand in perfectly balanced poses, and looked for the best camera angle. Samantha, get behind Archie. Don't move to the left. Try to smile more naturally. Archie and Sarah bought new clothes specifically for filming, and I wore what I could pick out of my closet to match their color scheme. Sarah, honey, tilt your head a little bit. A click. One more. one more. The photo sessions lasted for hours until Mom got the perfect shots for her social media feed. We looked like a happy family in the pictures. But I knew that wasn't the case. The worst part came later, when Mom boasted about the results of these photo shoots at every family gathering. Look at how many likes this photo has gained. She enthusiastically showed the phone to Aunt Karen or Uncle Pete, her eyes shining with self-satisfaction. Everyone says that we look like the perfect family, don't they? Kids just look amazing together. You'd never guess that they weren't always siblings. I stood next to him, feeling like a prop in someone's play, while my mother enthusiastically talked about our beautiful mixed family to everyone who was willing to listen. Photographs, of course, have never shown reality. They didn't capture how Sarah rolled her eyes when I walked into a room, or how Archie expertly ignored me like I was nothing. The photos were perfect, but life itself was not. But that wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was being torn away from Grandma Rose. My grandmother, my father's mother, made it clear after the divorce that visiting her was out of the question. I didn't know why it happened, but I guessed. My mother never mentioned my grandmother after the divorce, as if she, too, had been cut out of our lives, just like my father. I missed her warm, vanilla, and lavender-scented hugs. The way she could listen to me for hours, really listen, not just nod at the phone. I missed her cozy kitchen, where we baked cookies sprinkled with powdered sugar together, and her laughter, which made the house come alive. Now I have only memories. Instead, I was stuck with my mom's relatives, who believed in her perfect family story, swallowing every word like fish caught on a hook. They admired her, praised her for being such an amazing stepmother, while I sat in the corner wondering if I had become invisible. As the months passed, the distance between my mother and me grew wider and wider, until it became a chasm wider than the Grand Canyon. She lived and breathed her new family. All the conversations, plans, trips, everything now revolved around Archie and Sarah. Family movie night. Archie, what would you like to see? We are planning a weekend lunch. Sarah, dear, where should we go? My opinion didn't matter anymore. I sat at the table during family discussions and watched my mother eagerly lean over to Sarah to hear which restaurant she wanted to go to, or how enthusiastically she agreed to a new superhero movie chosen by Archie. Sometimes I opened my mouth to offer something, but Mom was already grabbing the keys, enthusiastically repeating, "Great choice, Archie." "Oh, Sarah, this is going to be so much fun." One Sunday morning, when they were preparing for another family outing, I stayed in my room. No one came to ask why. No one even tried to convince me to join them. I heard Sarah's voice outside the door. "Well, now we don't have to pretend to turn it on, Mom." The answer was silence. Summer came with a big announcement, which always delighted me as a child. "We have amazing news," Mom said one evening, beaming with happiness. She clutched Steve's hand as if he were an anchor holding her back from taking off. "We are planning a month-long trip to Europe." Archie and Sarah burst into cheers. "Can we go to Paris?" Sarah squealed, clapping her hands. "I want to see the Eiffel Tower." "And Barcelona?" Archie said, jumping up and down. "They have the best football stadium in the world there." I sat on the couch and watched them. The way they bounced around the room like they'd won $1 million. No one was looking in my direction. No one asked me what I thought about spending a month in Europe. I sat watching this scene like it was a TV show about a happy family. A show where I wasn't part of the trip. The morning started early. I was in my room, double-checking my list of things, when I heard a sound. I looked up and saw Sarah. She was standing by my dresser, holding my favorite blue swimsuit in one hand and a pair of scissors in the other. A second later, the steel of the blades parted, sliding across the fabric. I froze, watching as she methodically cut the swimsuit, first cutting off the straps, then the belly, tearing the smooth fabric into shreds. A slight smile played on her lips, as if she was enjoying every move. For a moment, I just stood frozen in disbelief. I knew that Sarah didn't love me. She's made that all too clear in the last 2 years. But this was different. It was cruel. I lunged forward, trying to pry the scissors out of her hand. "Give them to me." Sarah jerked, and suddenly we were fighting. She was smaller than me, but surprisingly strong. When we were pushing and pulling the scissors, she suddenly screamed, "Help me! Samantha is attacking me." Loud footsteps rang up the stairs. A moment later, Mom and Steve burst into the room. They found us both flushed and disheveled. The mangled swimsuit was lying on the floor between us. She was trying to hurt me. Sarah screamed and immediately ran to her father, deftly sobbing into his shoulder. I was just standing here, and she went crazy. "It's not true," I exclaimed, breathing heavily. "She cut my swimsuit." I tried to stop her. Mom barely glanced at the pieces of cloth on the floor. "What's wrong with you, Samantha?" Her voice was as harsh as a whip. "Are you really so jealous of Sarah that you're attacking her?" "I'm not." "To my room," Mom interrupted sharply. "And stay there until we leave for the airport. Obviously, you can't be trusted when it comes to Sarah." They left, taking Sarah with them. Through the closed door, I could hear my mom comforting her. "Don't worry, honey. We're going to go to the mall now and buy you new clothes to make you feel better after this terrible experience." I sat on the bed, staring at the pieces of a ruined swimsuit, and listened to them go shopping. No one bothered to ask if I needed a new swimsuit. No one cared if I was telling the truth. Evening came. We gathered in the lobby with our luggage, and Mom checked the list of things one last time while Steve loaded the bags into the taxi. Mom turned to me, giving me a cold look. "I still don't think you deserve this trip after what you did to Sarah," she said. "But we can't leave you alone at home for a month, so you'll have to go. Just try not to cause any more problems." I clenched my fists in silence. It was unbearable at the airport. We went to the reception desk, and Mom handed over all the documents. I felt my stomach clench with tension, fatigue, and something else that I couldn't find a name for. "Mom," I said, shifting uncomfortably, "I need to go to the bathroom." Mom barely glanced at me as she rummaged through her huge bag. "Okay, but hurry up. We can't miss the flight because of you." "Should I take my bag?" I nodded at the carry-on bag. "Just leave her alone," she snapped. "I won't let you wander around with our documents and money." I nodded and hurried to the signs. The crowd made it difficult for me to move, and the signs were confusing. I took 2 wrong turns before I finally found the bathroom. When I finished and returned to the check-in area, my family was not there. I froze, looking around in confusion. Maybe I went to the wrong counter? I called, feeling panic rise in my chest. No one answered. "Steve?" People turned around, but none of them were my family. I called out again, louder. Silence. I ran. As I desperately searched for them, panic tightened my throat like an iron hoop. Maybe they've already passed the security check. But how could I follow them if Mom had all my documents? My heart was beating so hard that I could hear it buzzing in my ears. I didn't have a phone, it was left in my carry-on bag. I didn't have any money, my mother always carried it with her. There was no ID, no boarding pass. Nothing. I ran back to the check-in area. No one. Then I went back to the bathroom. Maybe they were waiting for me there. Food court. Queues, people with trays, the smell of coffee and pastries. They should be here. but there were none. Time seemed blurry, stretched unnaturally, like in a bad dream. The panic grew by the minute, swallowing me whole. People passed by, lugging suitcases, hugging families, saying goodbye. They lived their normal lives while my world was falling apart. Finally, after what seemed like hours, but was probably only 40 minutes, I couldn't run anymore. I stopped in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by strangers, and burst into tears. Not with quiet, restrained tears. It was with loud, gasping sobs that shook my entire body. "Are you all right, honey?" A gentle voice broke through my crying. I looked up. A woman in an airport uniform stood in front of me. Her face was contorted with worry. "Where are your parents?" I tried to explain, but the words came out in broken, breathless fragments. They're gone. I just went to the bathroom. They have all my stuff." The woman's face changed when she realized what I was saying. She put her arm around my shoulders and gently but confidently led me to the door marked airport staff. Before I knew it, I was already sitting in a small office. Serious people in security guards' uniforms asked questions, made phone calls, and viewed camera footage. Their faces grew darker and darker. "It's been confirmed," I heard one officer say to another. They checked in, waited until the girl left, then went to the gate and boarded the flight. My heart sank. They've already flown out. Silence. I stared at one point without blinking. They flew away. "Is there anyone we can call for you?" The policeman's voice became softer. "An adult relative who could come for you." I wiped my eyes with the napkin they gave me. "My father." The word flashed through my mind. "My father," I said softly. "I haven't seen him in 2 years, but I know his name. I know where he worked." They recorded the information, and I heard someone calling in the next room. I sat wrapped in a borrowed airport blanket, trying not to think about the plane that had probably already crossed the Atlantic. He took my mother and her real family away. "Samantha." A familiar voice made me look up. I froze. My father was standing in the doorway. He looked exactly the same as in my memories, but something was different. More gray hair. Shadows of fatigue under the eyes. But his look. They were the same eyes that used to look for monsters under my bed. The same eyes that lit up with delight when I showed him my research projects. "Dad," my voice cracked. I jumped up and ran to him. And he hugged me like I was 7 years old again. We both cried. "I'm so sorry, honey," he repeated, stroking my hair. "I'm so sorry." The trip to him was unreal. I was sitting in the passenger seat of his car, sneaking glances at him. I was afraid that if I looked away for too long, he would disappear. "You've grown up," he said suddenly, giving me a quick glance. I smiled, a real, warm smile that I hadn't felt in a long time. Now he lived in another part of the city, in a large apartment building that I had never seen before. When we went up in the elevator to the 8th floor, he suddenly said, "I want you to meet someone." I looked at him questioningly. "With whom?" My father opened the door, and a woman appeared in front of me. "This is Lisa," he said warmly. "My fiancée." She was my rock and everything. Lisa turned out to be a woman with soft features and thick curly red hair. When she looked at me, her eyes filled with warmth, and before I could say anything, she hugged me tightly, as if she had known me all her life. "Poor thing," she said, stroking my back. "I'm sorry, you're probably starving. I'm going to cook you a real meal now. No arguments." I blinked, confused. I didn't expect such an attitude. But something in her voice, in the caring expression on her face, made me relax. While Lisa started cooking, I sat at the kitchen table across from my father. The familiar smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Dad still drank it black, with a drop of sugar. He took a sip, cupping the mug in both hands, and then looked at me. "Samantha," he finally said. I noticed his fingers were shaking. "I think it's time for you to find out the truth about what happened 2 years ago." I held my breath. I came home early from work that day. I wasn't supposed to be there, but the meeting was canceled. His voice was flat, but I could see how tensely he was clutching the mug. "I found your mom in our living room." He paused. "With Steve." My stomach clenched. "There." They weren't just talking, he finally managed. The words hit me like icy water. When I ran into them, Steve tried to act tough. We got into a fight. Not my proudest moment. I saw his jaw tighten. "Your mother tried to come between us. And one of us. I'm still not sure who, accidentally pushed her." He paused, his gaze fixed somewhere past me. "She fell. She hit the coffee table hard. There was blood on her face, and her hands were all scratched." I covered my mouth with my hand. I tried to help her, but before I could, she looked me straight in the eye and said. He closed his eyes, as if the words hurt him physically. She said that if I didn't do exactly what she wanted, she would go to the police. What? I gasped. She said she would tell everyone that I beat her up. That she has bruises to prove it. She said I'd go to jail and never see you again. I sat as still as a statue. She gave me her conditions, my father continued. Divorce, alimony. And I had to stay away from you. At all. He looked up at me, his eyes full of pain. She said that if I tried to contact you or tell you the truth, she would carry out her threat. My head was spinning. I believed for so many years that he had just left me. But all this time, it was a lie. The next morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table, absently picking at my breakfast plate. Lisa sat down next to him, thoughtfully stirring her coffee. Samantha, she said. My brother Michael is a family law lawyer. He's really good at what he does, and I think he can help us. Dad looked up from the newspaper. Do you think he'll take the case? Are you kidding? Lisa took out her phone. When I told him what happened at the airport, he was ready to come right now. He's just waiting for our permission. Everything happened quickly. A few hours later, there was a knock on the door. Michael turned out to be a tall man with the same red hair and kind eyes as Lisa. But beneath his gentle gaze, there was steel. He sat down at the dining table with us, opened a notebook and began to make detailed notes while I told my story. Then he immediately started calling. His voice became firm, confident, businesslike. This is his lawyer mode, Lisa whispered with a smile. A few hours later, he had already submitted the documents to the Child Protection Service and the guardianship authorities. It turns out that leaving a child at the airport is a serious offense. 2 days have passed. I was sitting in the car when Dad turned to me with a mysterious smile. There's someone who's missed you so much. I looked at him questioningly. Someone who never stopped asking about you. We turned into a familiar neighborhood. I held my breath. When the car stopped, I saw the house. Yellow paint. Flower boxes in the windows. The old porch swing where she and I sat drinking lemonade. My heart started pounding. The front door swung open before we could reach it. Samantha. Grandma rose. She ran out onto the porch, her face wet with tears. Suddenly, I found myself in her bare hug, which smelled of cinnamon and fresh laundry. Let me take a look at you. We spent the day browsing through old photo albums, eating Grandma's famous chocolate chip cookies, and catching up. Grandma showed me the greeting cards she wrote for me on every holiday, but she still couldn't send them. I didn't know where to send them, honey, she said, stroking the postcards with trembling fingers. They were kept in a drawer along with newspaper clippings about the school contests I participated in. I collected them all, Grandma confessed. At least that way I could feel closer to you. I looked at the yellowed pages, at the clipped articles with my name on them, at the carefully folded postcards, and a lump rose in my throat. The days turned into weeks, and before I realized it, a month had passed. Mom and her perfect family were still in Europe, enjoying the best moments of their lives, judging by their social media posts. New photos appeared in my feed every day. Sarah poses at the Eiffel Tower. Archie is at the Colosseum. Mom and Steve at a romantic dinner in Paris. Not a single message to me. Not a single question about whether I'm okay, whether I have a place to stay, whether I'm even alive. Mom took with her my phone, my laptop, all my clothes, everything I had that day at the airport. But she didn't seem to care at all. I logged into my social networks from my father's computer and saw that their accounts were active. They posted new photos and commented on friends' posts. They saw that I was online too, the little green dot next to my name made it clear. But not a single message. Not even a simple, "I hope you're alive." It was Dad's idea for me to wait for them at home when they get back. I was sitting in the living room, my heart pounding, when I heard a taxi pull up to the house. Dad was at Mom's home office, waiting for the right moment. We could hear them laughing and chatting animatedly through the front door. "Oh my God, I missed our beds so much," Mom said cheerfully. "How cool it was in Italy," Archie added. "Oh, I'm so glad we're finally home," Sarah screamed. The sound of a key in the lock. The door burst open, and they burst inside, loaded with bags, suitcases, and shopping bags. They froze when they saw me. Mom quickly pulled herself together and put on a smug smile. Well, she drawled. "Look who found their way home." Steve grinned, dropping his bags at the foot of the stairs. "See? We told you she'd be fine." That's when Dad left the office. Instantly, Mom's expression changed. The smug smile disappeared, replaced by shock. And then rage. "What the hell are you doing at my house?" "Stop it," she screamed, stepping back to Steve. "Get out now." Dad stood quietly, but there was steel in his voice. "I'm here to tell you what's going to happen now, Karen." Mom frowned. "I'm taking Samantha with me. Forever." My heart skipped a beat. "I have already applied for custody." Mom turned pale. "And I'm suing to deprive you of your parental rights. You can't do this." "I'm sorry," she croaked. "I can." "And I did it," the father replied calmly. She opened her mouth to protest, but he continued. "And that's not all." His father's voice hardened. "There is also a criminal charge for leaving a minor at the airport." Mom turned even paler. "For this, you both face serious imprisonment." He looked at Steve. He swallowed nervously. Mom's voice was shaking with rage. "Do you think anyone will believe you after what you did to me?" "Stop it," she hissed. "I still have photos of my injuries. I'll tell everyone how you beat me up." Dad chuckled. But it wasn't a happy smile. "Go on," he said quietly. "What?" "My lawyer has already prepared an answer to this old lie." Mom tensed up. "But here's the thing, Karen," her father cocked his head. "You didn't file a police report right away." She pursed her lips. "And now you've ruined your reputation by leaving our daughter alone at the airport." He took out a folder with documents from the inside pocket of his jacket and threw it on the table. "It's all on video," he continued. She didn't move. Every second. He took a step forward. How do you leave? Get on the plane. Mom swallowed. How are you enjoying your European holidays? Her lips twitched. While our 15-year-old daughter was left alone. The father paused. Without money. Without a phone. Without an identity card. He looked her straight in the eye. What kind of mother is that? She just stood there, pale with realization. My mom and I stared desperately at Steve, who seemed to be trying to blend into the background, as if hoping that if he was quiet enough, everything would just pass him by. But Dad continued, without taking his eyes off Mom. No judge will believe your accusations. Not after what you didn't do. Mom narrowed her eyes, her lips pressed into a thin line. What do you mean by that? Dad took out another folder from the inside pocket of his jacket and slowly put it on the table. Police report. Footage from the airport. Social media posts showing you enjoying your vacation in Europe without even trying to find out if your daughter is safe. Mom stared at the folder in silence, her fingers curled into fists. You've shown your true colors, Karen, he said calmly. And now you're going to face the consequences. The trial went faster than anyone expected. Michael said it was because the evidence was incontrovertible. Footage from the airport showing Mom walking away without even turning around. A police report detailing my condition when I was found. Social media posts proving that Mom, Steve, Archie, and Sarah were just living their best lives while I was abandoned. It didn't even take long for the judge to make a decision. Mom lost everything. The alimony paid by the father was immediately terminated. Dad got full custody of me. Which, to be honest, was just a formalization of what had already become obvious. I'm never going back to that house again. Mom and Steve got a year of probation each, plus a fine. Steve paled when the amount was announced. But I didn't feel satisfied watching them fidgeting in their seats. I didn't feel anything. It was like watching the end of a movie about someone else's life. That was 6 months ago. Now I'm sitting in my new room in Dad and Lisa's apartment, trying to decide which earrings to wear to their wedding next month. Lisa asked me to be her bridesmaid. The dress we chose is hanging on my closet door, pale blue like the summer sky. I did not know what happened to my mother and her real family after the trial. They've moved somewhere. I heard about this from Aunt Jenny, who, oddly enough, along with most of my mother's relatives, sided with us when she found out what had happened. Blood doesn't justify what she did to you, Jenny said firmly. Grandma Rose now comes to dinner with us every Sunday. She always brings her famous chocolate chip cookies and news stories about Dad's childhood, which make him moan and I laugh. Sometimes we look through old photo albums together. But now we are creating new memories by filling fresh pages with photos of happy moments. After everything settled down, I transferred to Riverside High School. There was no way in hell I was going to continue going to school with Archie and Sarah. And, as it turned out, it was the best solution. My new friends, especially Rachel and Kim, are the real friends I've never had before. They don't know the whole story of why I transferred. But they know enough to understand why I sometimes stop talking when people talk about their moms. Sometimes I find myself thinking about Mom, Steve, Archie, and Sarah. But it's more like thinking about characters from a book I read a long time ago. There is a distance in these memories. Unreality. I've blocked them all on social media. Not out of anger. It's because I just don't need to know anymore. I'm tired of being a ghost in their perfect family photos. You're stronger than I've ever been at your age, Dad said one evening as we washed the dishes after dinner. I looked at him and smiled. Maybe, I replied. Or maybe I was just lucky. I'm lucky to have him. Liza. Grandma Rose. All the people who showed me what a real family looks like. People who support you. Who are fighting for you. who make it so that you know you're loved. Write a comment on what you think about this story and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it. See you soon.